So you might have noticed I got the background. Actually, I kind of blurred out. I'm blurred. There, now you can see my messy. This is actually my daughter's room. She's not. She moved off to college, so I converted her room into my home junk storage / office. Everything else. So, all right. As you can see, I am zooming from home today. Hopefully, it works okay. The internet stuff I've got is this. I'll show you the log or the stats page, which is kind of interesting. So it's getting better and better. It has in the past, like last year, I tried it, and that's why I started going to school almost every day. Is that the so my internet is that Starlink, it's this dish thing that good old Tesla and SpaceX and all that. So they've got this dish satellite thing. So they're low Earth orbit. I think I've mentioned this to you before, but it's kind of fascinating technology as we're talking about the network cabling and stuff like that in chapter 5. The satellites are close to Earth, which means that the latency is much better than the older satellite systems. So they've had satellite systems in the past, like HughesNet. There was one called Wild Blue Yonder for a while, and their satellites had fewer satellites, but also their satellites were much higher, so they cover a bigger area of the planet. But the latency would just kill you. So if you were gaming, my nephew, they used to have HughesNet, and so like you guys that are gamers, latency or ping time is really relevant. And the ping time on HughesNet was like over 1,000 milliseconds. Like that's a long time. So at any rate, that's just kind of different. I'll go back to that, I guess. All right. Okay. We still got people digging in here, joining us, getting more of the class here. All right, so I've got my coffee. We'll start on school stuff. So I also had some questions to you guys. How are you doing on the quiz? I extended it out to be due the day after tomorrow, right? So I mentioned that last week. How many people are done with it? Got it turned in? Okay, good. All right. I might give you guys a little time. I was thinking if you guys had questions on any of the questions a little bit later during class, I might have you guys break up into breakout rooms or something like that. Or if anybody has any interest in discussing the quiz, then you guys could discuss with each other. Did anybody get together on Discord? I know Kyle just popped in. You put out a kind of a message on Discord to put out a message on Discord to get together. Did you get any takers on that much, or?
No, which I would gladly invite anyone. I'm always home. And Discord's really convenient for me. So if you're ever in a position to where you want to bump heads or like go over answers or try to explain something, I'm totally down. So
yeah, and there you can put it in the class discussion too if you guys want to. There's not really a class discussion for each class. It's kind of a general class discussion, I think, on there. So if there's a question, you guys can post it, and there can get some, or live, however you guys want to do it. But I'm not opposed to that. I don't consider it like cheating per se or whatever you guys, if you're talking about the questions, that's at least discussing stuff and you're bouncing ideas off of other people, especially some of those scenario questions where they kind of have the little scenario where you guys are supposed to be pretending like you've got a problem to solve and then figuring out. And some of the answers they've got are, there's multiple answers that are kind of correct, and then there's one that's maybe a little bit more pertinent or whatever to the discussion. So, all right. It's the man cave. I've got these goofy. Anyway, so I've got an unused treadmill back there. My bicycle, I should be riding more. So hopefully the internet works out okay. I was going to share with you guys the network stats, which is kind of interesting. So I'll show you the ping time and stuff like that. So the way they do it is kind of weird. Like usually if you run ipconfig and you look at your gateway address, your gateway is your router's internal network interface, right? So you've got like a router would have an internal interface coming into the network side for your LAN, and then you have the external interface, which would take you out on the internet. But a lot of satellite systems or point-to-point wireless essentially have kind of two versions or two NAT sections. So like you have your dish and where it connects out to either another dish like point-to-point wireless, or it's connecting in this case up to the satellites. So it establishes kind of a NAT for that segment. And then there's another network address translation segment for the internal network. So what you get is like if you run the gateway address, you don't get your router. You get kind of the radio that attaches you out to the network. So it's kind of weird in that sense. But let me show you guys the stats here. I need to hook up my other monitor. It actually is very, if you're teaching the Zoom, it's very handy to have dual monitors set up so you can have your Zoom session on one screen and then whatever you're sharing on the other. But I'm making do with one monitor. I've got two of them here right now. Let's try this. All right, so you can see this is the network. If you're curious at all, like this, I just thought, so this is, if you log into the statistics page, this is a local network address. This is not the address of the router. It's sort of an extra little interface that it's doing. And if you try to go to your gateway, what it does is it just bounces you to their website. Now, a lot of people that are running Starlink actually pick up their own routers. I'm running the factory router that comes with, which is pretty decent, but it doesn't really allow you to do any management capabilities. So like you can't log into it and set up port forwarding or anything like that. It just bounces you to what they call a captive portal. So it takes you to their website. But here you can see usage statistics over the last few minutes, 10, 15 minutes. You can see it's kind of like, it spikes every once in a while, kind of Zoom. It's cache, it's probably caching stuff, and then it sends data and caches some more. You run speed tests, and then it shows the outages. If there's been any outages, luckily there hasn't been any. Every once in a while it does have an outage, or maybe it can't track the satellite. I've got a pretty clear view of the sky, so anything that's wireless, that is point-to-point wireless or satellite, you know, you're ever working on that stuff. This is more common up in like Okanagan County up there. They've got a ton of point-to-point wireless stuff set up, whereas in Chelan and Douglas County, a lot more of it is on fiber. If you're lucky, I do not have fiber. It's about halfway up my road. But so there hasn't been any outages, but you do need clear line of sight. So like if you're running point-to-point wireless, it needs to be able to see the other dish or the other satellite, so there's trees overhanging or anything like that. But here you can see latency is actually pretty decent. It's probably not awesome compared to fiber optic, but the latency minimum is 25 milliseconds and maximum is 46 milliseconds. So it's pretty decent latency. I mean, you can probably game on it, except for every once in a while, it will drop a connection, but it seems to recover pretty quickly. So if I drop connection today, I'll join back in right away, but it'll make one of you guys the leader of the Zoom session. All right. So first off, are there any questions about the quiz? Like if we can do a little Q&A right now, if you guys haven't turned it in yet. So once you submit it, can you reopen it again, or is that a done deal? I think it's done deal, right? You guys?
Yeah, which scenario wise, I was thinking, because I realized like through switching all of my different tabs and my second monitor, I might have misclicked on like an answer that I didn't notice. Is that something we can talk about in the future if I like, oh shit?
Yeah, I'm not sure quite how to fix it necessarily, other than I could go in and like manually bump it up a point or something like that. To put your mind at ease, by the end of the quarter, one misclick or one point isn't going to make any difference, but it is nice to kind of feel like you did as well as you can do on any particular quiz. I totally get that. And if you completely messed up somehow and submitted it and only did half of it or something weird, then yeah, I can try to open it back up or extend the time period. I think there's an option in Canvas to like give you guys another attempt at it. Like you could open it up completely. And usually what I do is I set it so that the correct answers don't appear until the next day after the quiz has been submitted. So yeah, if something like that happens, it's weird, just let me know and I can have it open up and give you an option to like another attempt. I think another attempt is how it works.
Cool. Nice. Yeah. And question wise, I guess specifically the wording on, was it question number 24, I think?
Okay.
Hold on, oh yeah, question 24. Because I remember putting in the event a DHCP server is unavailable, the workstation will have a valid IP, but then I was kind of went over in what scenario will you use the the IP configuration to change it. To assign this, like the wrong answer was to assign a secondary DNS IP server address.
I'm looking at it right now to see what we got.
So I think it's the wording like towards the end, I think is why it's wrong, but yeah.
Oh, weird. Mine are not numbered. So it was asking about,
Well, let me re-pull it up then.
I'm see, so what was the question? Just read it out loud.
I'm getting to it right.
Okay.
Software. It was all alternate IP configuration, I think, question.
Okay.
Chapter, okay. So yeah, it's which of the following is a scenario in which an IT support technician would most likely be required to implement an alternate IP configuration method on a network host?
Okay.
The correct answer is in an event a DHCP server is unavailable, the workstation will have a valid IP address to subnet.
Right. Okay.
But I instinctively went for first, and then a day or so later, and then blah, blah, blah. But then I changed it to assign a secondary DNS server IP address to a specific network interface on the workstation. And I came to that conclusion because of page 144 and reading it, it made it sound like that was the right answer, but it's not.
What, that was question number 23?
Oh, I got on 24 on the quiz 1 through 3, chapters 1 through 3.
Okay. I'm seeing a totally different. Oh, that's never mind. I've got.
Oh, you know what? This is the network class, I guess. I was talking.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
I do that too. I'm that's so you're in the hardware class or the
Yeah, I am, but
okay, never mind.
my mind thought it was all just one big deal. I'm sorry.
No, that's that I've done that so many times because I've got these classes like back to back to back. And then so yes, but to kind of get to that question, the alternate IP configuration, which actually this is the networking class, so they're both there's a lot of crossover because the beginning A+ class deals with troubleshooting stuff, and a lot of troubleshooting is related to if you can't get online, that's what people are going to be whining about. They're like, oh, I can't check my email, whatever. So so at any rate, yeah, the alternate IP configuration, its main purpose is if somebody's working at home and they've got one configuration, and if they come to work with the same device, then DHCP is going to try to give it an address that isn't correct. So you can configure an alternate address for an alternate configuration for your home network versus the work network. It's its main function.
Got it. So yeah, that was my train of thought, but I was mistakenly, I think, on the verbiage. Like, so it's not to assign a secondary DNS server; it's for the DHCP. Okay.
Yeah, if you guys any questions about this, what we got going for this class? Is all doing okay? Just trying to give me just a chance to check in and see how you're going. All right. So for today too, what everybody's here. Oh, I was going to do word of the day too, so I'll make sure to plug that in. What should our word of the day be? Trick or treat? It's just Halloween. It's not even networking related, but we'll do that one. Trick or treat. Put it in the chat there. Word of the day is trick. Yeah, like I say, I don't ever get trick or treaters here. It's out in the middle of nowhere, and I used to just take my kid into town somewhere to get her to do trick or treating. Sounds like somebody at least had future trick-or-treaters who's handing out Pokemon cards and stuff like that. That's awesome. Okay, so okay, yes. So Kyle has an actual test question. Thank you, Kyle. That's good. We'll talk about it. So the quiz, yeah, I bumped the quiz question for the quiz to be due out on. So actually, tomorrow is advising day, right? So we don't have normal classes tomorrow. We'll do a tiny bit of group advising today for you. So yeah, the quiz is due. Double check here. Right class. So it's due at midnight tomorrow. So yeah, it has to be turned in before class on the 3rd. So basically you have all day to work on it tomorrow up until midnight. And then you have to submit it. So make sure you get it done. You'll have some time tomorrow. We won't have class tomorrow. Officially, when we've got advising, we used to have students, obviously come onto campus. So today we'll do a tiny bit of group advising. We'll do that right now, and hopefully that'll answer any questions. If you guys have questions, you don't have to. We can do an individual Zoom, but you guys can also just message me on Discord, and you can ask questions anytime. It doesn't really, like our program's a little unique in that it's kind of like the other tech programs where you've got a group of students that go through each quarter, and it's fairly structured in the terms of you guys have some options for electives, especially a little bit later on in the program. You'll have options to take electives. So that's probably one of the questions that I get is that what classes are okay for electives, and I'll take any elective class for the degree that's credit based. So you can't take a pass-fail PE class or something like that. Now you can take those classes, but they're not going to count necessarily. They won't count towards your degree, but they will count to be a full-time status student. So if you're taking classes and you're kind of going, it's hard because if you're trying to go part-time, these classes in particular don't get offered every single quarter. In fact, most all of the classes are offered once a year. So if you miss a class, you have to come back and pick it up the next year. And that works okay if you miss one class, you kind of get out of sequence. You can take stuff and figure it out and put it back in the schedule. But as far as electives go, some big ones might be next quarter if you're taking a couple of these classes and then you want an elective class. You've got your program requirements, which are English 101. So if you're working up towards English 101, you might be taking a lower level English class and working up to that. Math 99 or higher. So Math 99 is technically not college level, so it doesn't apply for your college level credits, but the registrar has agreed to show that in your transcripts so that technically if you take Math 99, when you graduate, you can graduate with 85 college level credits. If you take Math 100T, which is college level, you'll have 90 college level credits at a minimum when you graduate. And a lot of students do take that 100T, it's tech math. So, I'm not sure how many of you are maybe struggling with algebra or anything like that. But if you're, how many of you have taken math already or have your math out of the way?
I haven't taken it yet, but I remember last time, this was like the second week of class that I asked you this. What was that math that you recommended we take alongside the networking class?
It's not really alongside. So for the beginning, so the first quarter, most of you are taking 3 classes and you kind of like bump. So the long term, what I probably am going to do is merge the 110 and the 115 back into one class. It used to be one class for the A+ hardware and software. It was one class, and then we split it up because there was just each book got to be, everybody was splitting them. Anyway, to answer Greg's question, 100T is tech math. And so sometimes if students are on that pathway to taking Math 99, which is kind of the college algebra path, if you're struggling with college algebra or you're taking your placement tests, the placement tests will place you into 100T at the same time you would have placed into Math 98. So the placement tests consider 100T to, I guess, going to be an easier math pathway. So if you're struggling with the placement exams or you're placed into Math 97 or 98 or something like that, you might find if you retested or if you placed in the 98, you're like, oh man, I'm going to have to take 98 and 99. 100T would be a good option. Now, it's not offered every quarter, but it's one to take a look at and keep an eye out for the 100T class. The other class you could take is if you're ever thinking about possibly going on and taking more schooling or getting a transfer degree. You know, some people do that. They'll do the tech degree, and they'll also take an extra couple quarters and get a transfer degree. The Math 107, which is Math and Society, I believe is what it's called, is a transfer class straight up. So it'll transfer as part of an AA or AASP. So those are both options. The 100T, like I say, is college level, but it doesn't apply towards the AA. That helps you out. Yeah, as far as the classes go, next quarter, it's just the other two. I'll show you guys the program guide here. All right, so this is helpful. I mean, our website is a little bit, I wouldn't say it's terrible, but it's gotten better. Okay, so if you are, the background is the new, so I haven't seen this. This is the new mural that somebody painted inside Van Tassel, which is where the student rec center is. They've got like ping pong tables and stuff like that in there. All right, so anyway, if you're navigating our website and you want to find out our class schedule for our degree, you go to apply and you click on areas of study. And it's a little bit hidden. So you've got two, and we do offer a couple of four-year degrees like a BAS in nursing and engineering. So it's under 2-year degrees. And then our degree is a non-transfer degree. So like a lot of the other technical programs, accounting, automotive business. So we're under computer technology, network administration. Are you guys seeing the same thing I'm seeing? All right, so anyway, we'll go through this quickly, but if you haven't seen this, this is how you find it. They need to get rid of this picture. This is like a million years ago. I don't know. All right, so we've got a 1-year certificate.
Edward Snowden?
Yeah, right. I don't know if you guys saw on Discord, too. I posted my Halloween costume from a few years ago. So I was Walter White. But then the students commented if I had these weird safety glasses on. The students commented like, well, if you're wearing your regular glasses, you look like what's his name, Gordon from the Half-Life series that we were talking about the other day. If I got the white lab,
Gordon Freeman.
Gordon Freeman, thank you. Yes. And actually, I've worked on that Halloween. I grew out a full beard and then shaved it to just like goatee thing just for Halloween, so I could be Walter White. And I filled up all these little baggies full of these blue jelly beans. It took forever to fill these tiny little baggies. It gave me a great respect for drug use. It's hard work. All right. So at any rate, we've got the computer technician certificate. It's the first year of the program. So at the end of the first year, students can still qualify for this certificate. But the trick is you have to have also finished your English, math, and communication, which is hard to do unless you've already taken some classes at WVC. But it's a state requirement that the certificates also have this depth and breadth of the program that they have. They have other stuff in it besides the computer stuff. So you've got your English, math, and stuff. So at any rate, click on program guide. Here is the program guide. That's also, it used to be a PDF file you could download. I don't see that as an option. So you guys are in the first year right here. First year, first quarter. This is the networking class. Next quarter, you're looking at client and server. The client operating systems class is kind of morphed a little bit over the years. We've added in some Linux and stuff like that. The primary course is the server class. You'll be exploring server platform. So actually installing server 2019. We've used 2016 in the past. We kind of migrated to 2019. We try to stay up to date with the server, but not sometimes when it very first comes out. We also recognize the fact that out in industry, most people are still running 2016 R2. Like they're not, businesses don't tend to upgrade super quickly. Like they'll wait a little while and then upgrade to the next version of server. But here's where you see the support course. If you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see the support courses, and those are the ones I was just mentioning, English and math. And then like it says math 99 or higher, so you don't have to take 99. You can take something else that's higher numerically, and it'll still count towards the degree, whichever math class you want, pretty much. And then you also need a communications class, either communications 220 or 210. So that's interpersonal communications or public speaking, either one of those, but not both. Or you can also take BCT 116, which is the professional work relations class. A lot of people take that. There is one, the caveat to that class is that it is only 3 credits instead of 5. So at the end, if you're looking at needing to have 90 college level credits, we might be right on the bubble. That one doesn't count for as many credits. Also, it is non-transferable in the sense that maybe you want your credits to transfer down the road for, we would count like a lot of classes do as a restricted elective. So you guys have options for restricted electives if you do transfer, but you have a limited number of credits. Anyway, professional work relations, they deal with like interview skills, resume writing, stuff like that. Is anybody taking that class already? Okay. So it's an option. Any of those 3 classes works for your support course. If you already have support courses out of the way, or if you are, have already had some credits at WBC, which a lot of people do, they might take classes and come back or switch degrees or whatever. Then you can put an elective in there, anything that'll get you up to full-time status, preferably one that you're interested in. So classes that are kind of good to take for electives might be like web design class. We've got computer science, 151 is web design. You could take your programming class. So if you look at second year, fall quarter, one of the other classes you're required to take is computer science 141. That's fundamental programming. They're using Java right now. It's not JavaScript, it's just Java programming. So that's offered other quarters as well. So if you get that, you might choose to take that in the winter quarter instead of waiting until spring of the next year. So if you've already got your classes out of the way in terms of math and English and stuff, that would be one to keep an eye out for. Anyway, good class. And then there's the 151 class, which is web design. Some people take the some classes. Whoops. Some people take classes offered through the art part, like our digital design class. It's pretty cool. We've got some, they do like page layout. You get to work with Photoshop and these other 3D. There's a 3D class, 3D Studio Max that they're using. So I think, and Rhino. So if you have any interest in kind of doing some artistic stuff or things that involve computers, Photoshop and stuff like that, they've got some classes through the digital design program, which might be of interest to some of you as a nice elective. I'm all for people taking some electives that they find to be interesting. You can also take some classes like in accounting or something like that if you think you might be running your own business. So all sorts of options, and I kind of leave that open to you guys. You guys can take whatever you want for an elective. I don't care necessarily what you take as long as it's not pass fail or whatever. But hopefully you hopefully you take stuff that you like or think you might like. I took all kinds of weird classes in college, and some of them just for fun. They didn't count for anything. But I took a ceramics class. That was all right. Questions on the degree as far as classes or sequencing or anything like that? Okay, good. You guys are so quiet today. Did anybody dress up for Halloween? No?
I have a question about the degree.
Oh, excellent. Even better. All right. Go ahead.
So if we're done with the first year, how do we continue for the second year, if that makes any sense?
Well, basically, I mean, the classes at the community colleges are just open enrollment. So like, you just register for classes each year. I mean, each quarter, excuse me. So, for next quarter, registration will start, I believe it's November 16th or 17th, something like that. That's another thing to keep an eye on is on the main college website, look on academic calendar and just kind of be aware of days. I try to give you guys a heads up, like for instance, tomorrow is advising day. So you guys don't have any classes for during the day. So even if you're taking some other classes, you won't have any classes tomorrow. You're off the hook with me for a day. I'll give you a good chance to get your quiz done. But Rigo, to answer your question, yeah, for when you get to the end of this year for spring quarter, you register for summer and fall at the same time. And that's actually a good question Rigo had, because some students think that at the end of spring quarter, you're just registering for summer and they're not going for summer. You may not go for summer session, right? So when you register in the end of spring quarter, you're registering all the way ahead in advance for fall right then. Does that help?
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. And we'll talk about classes, whatever, as we progress through. But like I said, our program is fairly structured in the sense that we don't have a lot of, there is some leeway, but classes for next quarter are only offered. So 130 and 140, the CTS classes. And those will be kind of commingled again. We'll be running server platform, probably in VirtualBox or Hyper-V, but there is an option to resize partition and install the server as a dual boot operating system. If you guys are comfortable doing that, that's a good option. Or we might even have, I hope, have the option for you guys to come on campus more readily. I'm still working on that. Or here's another side question since we're talking about school stuff. It's always school stuff. How many of you have done your like online? They had a thing where you guys are supposed to attest as far as being vaccinated. And I know you guys are. How many are you taking any? Are any of you taking any face-to-face classes? Or are you just all doing online right now with me? Okay. So if we were going to offer some sort of a lab space, like Thursdays and Fridays, what it would be for people would sign up for an optional lab, and this is maybe how it would work for winter quarter. But you guys would have to go online and fill out the forms that show you've been vaccinated, or fill out some sort of exemption form or whatever. So that's something to take care of looking ahead towards winter quarter, or even possibly for lab, some sort of an optional lab. If you want to come in and get some hands-on time, it would be awesome. You would have to do that ahead of time. And they're not required. Some schools are requiring it for online students anyway. So like University of Washington requires all their students to do that, regardless of whether they're in person or face-to-face, or what I mean, face-to-face or online. Anyway, take the time to do that if you're interested in doing labs, or it would be worthwhile to do it ahead of time for the potential of winter quarter being having more opportunity to be on campus. Online is okay. It's just kind of what we're dealing with right now. So I'm like just making the best of whatever situation we find ourselves.
Cool. Sounds good.
Good. Okay. So that's anyway. Like I said, advising doesn't. We look real quick for. So I'm looking at academic calendar now. You just go to the main college website up in the upper right-hand corner. You click on quick links, and you go to academic calendar. And let's see here. All quarter. So, yeah, advising day is the 2nd. Veterans Day is November 11th. We have no classes on the 11th. Depending on what day that is. That is, that's a Thursday anyway. So we're normally doing our asynchronous, working on quizzes, stuff like that on Thursday anyway. So don't worry about that. And then registration is the 15th through the 17th. So, and what that means is you'll get a registration time. You'll log into CTC link or into your student center, and you'll get an actual time. You guys probably know this already. So you get an actual time, and that's when you can jump online and register. You don't have to read. And I would get in and get registered as soon as you can. So it might be anywhere on the 15th, 16th, or maybe the 17th, depending on how many credits you have. And then the 24th is holiday for Thanksgiving, so Wednesday. We won't have any classes. And then we come back on the 29th, be back for minutes. So we'll have a pretty good break there. But you guys are kind of used to that because we kind of do the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday Zoom stuff. And then you guys are working on quizzes and homework and maybe some of the hands-on stuff. All right.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead. You just right.
So once we complete the 2-year degree program, and for instance, I want to go to WSU to continue to get a bachelor's, will the computer classes, will they transfer at all to for me to be able to just continue to maybe just do another 2 years, or would I have to kind of almost restart?
Some of them will so that's a really good question. In the degrees that they listed, we just looked at the college website. So they were 2-year non-transfer degrees. So they're not designed to transfer. They're designed as a technical degree. So similar to nursing or automotive, the idea is to get 2 years and get a job. But some people do want to go on and do more schooling, and that's why I was suggesting if you're taking classes here anyway, take the math class that transfers, right? You'll have English 101, take the communications class, don't take the BCT class doesn't transfer as a 2-year degree for a transfer class. So if you take English, math, and communications, there's 15 credits there. Your programming class transfers. So there's 20 credits right there.
Perfect.
Some of
Okay.
my classes can be used as what they call, they used to be called gray area electives. Now they're called restricted electives. You get 15 credits of those. So there's another 15 credits. You're not going to end up with all the classes transferring, but if you're smart,
but a decent amount.
yes. And then also the elective classes. If you're taking elective classes, take elective classes that fit into the 2-year degree that you transfer to. So take a history class if you want to, or a psychology class or whatever. And then you would have about 15 credits of electives too. So you would end up with a pretty good chunk, Brandon, but not all the computer classes transfer. They're not designed that. So
Perfect.
yeah,
that answers it perfectly. I appreciate
cool.
it.
Yeah, and if you're smart about planning your classes, you can end up with a pretty good chunk so that if you went to WSU or wherever, you wouldn't transfer with an AA like 90 credits. You would just go through each class, do a credit evaluation.
Mhm.
You would transfer with however many of those added up.
Okay.
It'll give you a foot in the door and a head start, but it's not.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I mean, that's really all I was looking for. Perfect.
Yeah, cool. All righty. So let's take a look at the book real quick and go over some of these troubleshooting tools. I also was going to show you how to use hadn't used that. I had to open it. Why I missed that? I need to get that letter. But I stole the cable off the wire to plug something else in, and then all right, there we go. Okay, so this is the stuff. So the troubleshooting tools part of this chapter. These are things that you guys can definitely do at home, and actually some of you work better at home than they did in our classroom, which is kind of ironic. And the reason for that is that in the classroom, our network was so restricted because the security, the IT security officer at school has us on lockdown. Like we've run into issues, weird little issues sometimes with students doing stuff in my computer lab that cause some issues on the network. So for instance, like even running like a DHCP server. One time they had their switch set up where it wasn't blocking traffic going out to the rest of the campus. And we were playing around with DHCP server. And so what happened was kind of like what I was describing in one session was we had essentially a rogue DHCP server running, and we didn't know. We weren't doing anything bad, but what was doing is was giving out addresses to the whole rest of the campus in our subnets within our building, basically. So where was that going? Oh yeah, so so they locked us down pretty hard in our classroom where I'm normally in rather than being at home. But so when you guys are running some of these little like NetStat or Ping utilities or CapPing and some of these others in the classroom, you would get a very restricted view of what's going on. Whereas at home, your home personal routers are much more open. Like your firewall configuration isn't going to be as strict. So like if you're running stuff, so I would highly encourage you guys as you're going through these, even if these aren't set up as a like quote unquote hands-on project, it's super easy just to open up a command prompt. Can you guys see the command prompt on the screen right now? Or are you just seeing the website still?
Just the website page.
All right, I'll try this. It's weird because okay, so it's only giving me. All right. Okay, so here's the command prompt. With dual mon, I got to get rid of the mark because otherwise it gives me the option to share the whole screen versus sharing each application. So my bad. All right, so I was already running the NetStat command, and the NetStat command is pretty powerful. So that's in chapter chapter 5, I guess. So it shows you all of your TCP connections. Notice there's very few, if any, are UDP connections. Now, UDP is used for like remote desktop. Like if I wanted to connect my computer to a server and do remote desktop, that uses UDP. But the basic netstat command, without any other switches involved, so like netstat-d or whatever, shows every single TCP connection that's open. And I've got quite a few tabs open, like usual, with Chrome. And so that's kind of cool that it's showing you those TCP connections. So remote connection and the local address. Now notice that most of them are HTTPS, and then I've got my local address going. So it's 192.168.1.229 is my local address. And then as I surf the internet or whatever, it's going to keep adding to that. If I want to break out of this and run another command, I can do a Control-C to break out, because this keeps going. You can see the previous command that I ran. It just kind of keeps rolling along because it gives you quite a few connections. All right, so that's netstat, but without any switches. So if you're in the book, if you're looking at this, you've got netstat-n-f-a. So I know it's not the most exciting thing, but if you're getting into networking and are wanting to kind of get into the building blocks of this and the fundamentals, try. It doesn't take long. Try each one of those. So it's listing like -f. So if I can use the up arrow to bring back my last command. So I'll hit up arrow. I'll do net. Not that I can't retype netstat, but if you're issuing long commands and you're making a change just at the end or even in the middle of it, hitting the up arrow caches all of your last commands as long as command prompt stays open. And you can use PowerShell too if you want. It doesn't really matter. Either one of these works, but it's sometimes handy to be able to just roll through your commands and like edit them out instead of just having to retype everything. So -f, it said in the book, was going to give us current connections, including IP address, ports, and FQDNs. So it's giving me most of the same information. The local port numbers. So with network address translation in the book, it mentions network address translation. And the way NAT works, because I have more than one computer running at home, obviously, I've got a few running and cell phones and all that stuff. So what it's doing is for each computer that's running, and then also each service that's connected on the on each computer, it's distinguishing those by giving it a port number. So you look under TCP, and there's my IP address, colon. And so that's how it's distinguishing the port number. You've got IP address plus the port number. Do you guys remember what that's called when you've got an IP address and port number listed together? What do they call that in the book?
Is that referring to like the header or when they're listed together? Or
no, but thanks for playing. I always appreciate even wrong answers are good. So in the book, I believe they call it socket connection. Is that?
Oh, sorry, I misheard the question.
Yeah, so you've got IP address plus a port number creates a socket, right? And then with NAT, network address translation, my network, just like your network at home, is sharing a single public address. You've got one connection out to the internet, and then behind the firewall, you've got a router, and it's doing DHCP, but it's also doing network address translation because I can have 10 computers or 50 or whatever behind the firewall. I'll go ahead and hit Control-C to cancel that. So I can have all these computers behind the firewall, and each one has multiple things that it might be doing on the internet. I've got Chrome open, I've got multiple tabs open across my screen, I've got Zoom session going with you guys. So each of those sessions that I've got has to have a separate socket number to differentiate the requests going out to the internet. Right? And then also each computer is going to be differentiated. So you have to have a way of telling those apart in the router to say, okay, that was Dave's computer, or that was the cell phone that's connected to the internet, whatever's on Facebook, or whatever it's connected to. Right? Okay, so that's just one. Okay, -A, that's what I was looking for, and then -R is routing. So let's try routing. And this is the kind of thing where, yeah, so if you list a question mark, it will give you this information on the screen too. So it's not like you have to have your book. We don't have books with this all the time. What you have typically is your phone and the internet, or another computer and the internet where you can look this stuff up. So you can look up netstat command or how to use NetStat, whatever. Or even like TCP/IP command line troubleshooting tools. There's probably a good list of them out on the internet. Your book has a list in this chapter. But this isn't the kind of thing you necessarily have to memorize. But the more often you use it, the more comfortable you're going to be using the command line. And this is something that's it's always on the computer, so it's not something you have to install necessarily. So anyway, dash question mark gives you a list of your switches that you can use. So there is my local routing table. So you've got your loopback address, which is basically back to your own computer. And then basically just it's pretty straight up. It's just routing out to my out to my routers. There's not a lot of stuff on there. And then you've got your broadcast addresses at the bottom. All 255s indicates network broadcast. And then the other switches that are going here. So here are my routes. Again, real simple. It doesn't really have, on a local network, you don't have too many choices, right? So, okay, so stop the share there. Go back to so we're almost out of time for this class. We're going to come back for the other class today. I don't think, unless there's other people in the other class, we won't do another little group advising session. But just as a reminder, like I said, I'm open to questions anytime. I have people shoot me questions on Discord. So it's easy to get in touch with me. I mean, the other advantage, I guess, if you're in, let's say if you're in another program like a transfer degree, your advisor you might not have in class. I think that's a big difference for us. Is that, if you have an advisor, you might have them for 1 or 2 classes throughout your 2-year degree, but you aren't going to see them every single day like you do with me. So anyway, if you have questions, just shoot me a question, email or Canvas or Discord even. Okay, so these other programs that are in here, these are all command line. Traceroute is super handy as well. We've used that a little bit. There's actually a program that you guys can download too called Visual Route, which is pretty cool. And the trial version, it used to be free, but the trial version, what it does is it puts Traceroute onto like a world map, which is kind of cool. And then if you do Traceroute from like your computer to wherever, like Amazon.com, or pick any website you want. I sometimes try to pick one that I know is in another country. Like the Register is a British website, so it's like the register.uk. Something. So if you pick something like that, it'll show your hops from your computer out your router, out to your ISP, out to the global, the big internet, the big pipes going to like say Chicago and then New York, and then over the transatlantic cable over to Britain, right? So however you're configured. So Visual Route is kind of cool. I mean, it just kind of makes it a little bit more apparent where the packets are actually going is across the planet, and it puts it on the map. So it's more of a gimmicky thing, but I think it's kind of cool. So Visual Route, if you check that out and just do the free version, you get like a free trial for like a week. You might play with it and just check that out. So this walks through how the initial ICMP and UDP packets are working, and it shows how Traceroute does its thing. Traceroute is combining ping utility and kind of showing you where those are going. It has you running trace routing with Google. You can also, if DNS is functioning, you don't need the IP address. You can do Traceroute and then any domain name that you want if it's a valid website. Okay, so it runs through some of those. Path ping, I don't use too much, but it's kind of similar to Traceroute. You can try that one out. But I would encourage you guys to try these out. I know you don't always have a ton of time. You're trying to do the quiz and stuff at the same time, but use these as a hands-on exercise. Just open up the command prompt and try each one out. See if you kind of give an understanding of what's being fed to you back on the screen. And some of them are going to be more useful than others in terms of troubleshooting. But these are so they're talking about using TCP, using logging in as root. If you open up command prompt, you can right click on it, you run it as admin. You can do the same thing with PowerShell, you can run it as admin. But here they're talking about using sudo. That's a Linux command. Wireshark, there's a Wireshark for Windows as well, but I don't know why they're exactly talking about Linux commands in here. Exactly. I just figured it out. All right. So at any rate, this is in chapter 4. It's in the troubleshooting section. And I found this part of the book in particular to be pretty useful in the sense that those are commands that I've used in the past. Network administrators can be using them, and some you'll find you end up using more often than others, right? But just getting exposed to them. And then if you're trying to remember how they work, if you can at least remember the name of the command, you can always Google it and come up with it later and say, okay, how do I use netstat, or what are the parameters, or try it in command prompt and either enter the command and hit enter, and if you didn't put anything in right, it'll give you some extra step, or try it with like netstat dash question mark, and it'll give you the little switches you might need and explain it a little bit. All right, let's take a quick break. Most of you guys are in the next class. We may not run that one the full hour, but we'll come back in. And if you guys need or have questions, actually a question for you guys: was video quality okay today? Like, am I choppy or crappy looking for video, or is it look okay?
It could be better, but it's not. It's not like, yeah, it's
It works. Okay, I was just checking. I mean, because what's weird is when you're running Zoom at your end, you're seeing the local interface for the camera, so it looks great at my end. But I was wondering at your end if it looks crappy or if it's chopping out or whatever. Just in case, this is sort of an experiment today. Not quite an emergency, but dog stuff, pet emergency, which is minor. But Taylor, oh. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Yeah. Anyway, appreciate you guys showing up. We'll take a quick break, come back and do a little bit of hardware, software stuff, and then break for the day. And then you guys get tomorrow off for advising. All right. See you guys in a few.